Welcome to the
Peeew
Show.
The Peeew Show. We're going to talk about Andy Warhol. Yet again. We'll never stop talking
All about Andy. All roads lead to Andy Warhol.
They really do. So this particular road led to the Whitney Museum, which was the which had the opening of actually a series of openings of receptions.
Yeah, because an opening isn't anything anymore. It has to be, in order for something to be more fabulous than an opening.
Right,
You have to have lots of openings.
Right, you have to have like 4 or 5 of them, and I think there were at least 3 or 4 in this case.
I remember when it was only 2.
Starting with the most, super fabulous opening where it's like only
Queen of
celebrities
England.
and really rich people and superstars can come to that. So that one I did not go to. But then the following night, on Tuesday, I went to another opening that was also VIP, but it was like, the lesser category.
It was VVIP.
So it was like
VVIP.
So it was just like only rich people, not super rich people.
You're not rich.
Well, I mean, I went because I was invited by somebody who contributed to the book that accompanies the exhibition. So he was on +1, and that's how I got to go.
You're a +1.
Yeah, I was a +1. And
how did it feel being a +1? We haven't been +1s in a long time.
I don't mind.
I like being a +1 because that means that we're going someplace really special.
I don't mind being a +1 because I'm always the one that has to have the +1s and get.
That's what I'm saying.
Giving other people the. So it's nice to be treated as like a guest.
And also it means you're going someplace really special if you're the +1.
Right.
Yeah.
So, there were a number of artists in the house. Like a lot of people related to Andy Warhol. Like I met his nephew who looks a lot like Andy Warhol.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
he actually was kind of cute in a weird way.
who, Andy?
When he was, younger.
Much younger.
5.
Yeah.
I
Hear that? Hear that, conspiracy theorists? So there were all these different categories of people. Like the exhibition, first of all, is fabulous. It's like a retrospective of his work. So it starts with all his like drawings from the 50s and it goes through his
shoes and stuff.
And then it goes through his works of the 60s, and then some of my favorite works, which were in the 80s when he was doing all those monumental camouflage works, where he did self-portraits with camouflage. He did the Last Supper with camouflage.
Oxidation?
Yes, he had the piss paintings. They also had a wall of paintings that he did in collaboration with Jean-Michel Basquiat, so it was.
I remember the party for that at Palladium.
Yes, I remember going to the Tony Shafrazi reception for the opening of Andy Warhol and Jean-Michel's show. And that was like 85 or 86, and I had just
86.
I had just moved to New York, and I think it was Howie Montag who told me, because I didn't really know like a lot about New York at that time, and sometimes I would see Howie Montag, and I would say, oh, what party should I go to next?
It was very accessible back then. Anybody really could have gone to
that. Yeah, you really could have. Like, I just, like Howie Montag was this door person and celebrity, nightlife personality in New York in the mid-'80s. And, he was really like a luminary in the club scene. And for some reason, he liked me, like probably wanted to sleep with me.
That was exactly what happened with me.
So he saw me at Danceteria and walked up to me and introduced himself to me and then gave me a drink ticket, which I didn't even know drink tickets existed at that point. And then he gave me one, and that's when I realized that I could get free drinks at clubs. But anyway, from that point on, I would always see him and I would say hi to him. And I would always ask him, well, what party should I go to? And so one night I asked him, and he's like, well, you should go to the Andy Warhol reception tomorrow at the Tony Shafrazi Gallery. So I went, and it was fabulous.
He introduced me to Rudolph.
Oh, okay. So that's a good introduction.
Yeah, right.
So the exhibition, I totally recommend it. It's open to the public, I believe, in a day or two, on the 15th, I believe, of November. And but the party was amazing. It was almost as much fun looking at the people that were at the party than looking at the art, because especially the women, I kind of like broke them down into these different categories of people. So like when you go to a museum, there's always like the museum matron ladies, and
dying breed.
Right, like when you see a museum
Carlisle.
Like when you see a museum matron, it's usually like an older woman in her 50s or 60s. They wouldn't like that word, but that's what I call them. And they are wearing really chic, usually black clothes, like that are draping or flowing. And then they've got like
because they're of a certain age.
Right, and then they've got really expensive, clunky jewelry or like some wild pendant that looks expensive.
Isis or Iris, the model, the older lady.
No.
The older lady with the clunky jewelry, and she's like 80 something. The glasses.
I'm thinking. Okay, well, I'm thinking grand dames. You know.
Like Kitty Carlisle.
Yes, but more chic and sophisticated.
More chic and sophisticated than Kitty Carlisle.
Well, I mean, did she always wear black?
Yeah. Well, no.
No, she didn't. So.
Sometimes she wore a bright red blouse.
Okay.
And she said, when I wear a blouse like this, you're gonna know about it.
Well, that's not chic and sophisticated. Then red is vulgar.
Yeah.
Red is very vulgar to the grand matrons. So there was that category of women. You know, like they don't work because their husbands are rich, so all they do is give money away to museums. So they got invited. And then there was the category of like supermodel women who were really young and wearing like head to toe designer clothes and looked drop dead gorgeous.
And they were the ones who were sleeping with the matron's husbands.
Possibly. And then there was the category of women that I would call like the bohemian women, who were the women who are not rich. Maybe like Lady Fag, or like you see a lot of these women like in Williamsburg, like the hipster.
Oh, I'm going to say something.
Or
We're going to get
Bushwick.
in trouble now. Sylvie. She's going to kill me for that.
Well, she could be considered a bohemian woman.
She is.
And so like they might have kooky, weird colored hair. They might be wearing
glasses.
They might be wearing thrift store clothes, but they're put together.
Kim Hofstadter.
Who?
Kim Hofstadter.
Okay, yes.
The paper magazine.
Kind of like that. So, or Lynn Yeager. You know,
Yeah.
who I recently
Oh,
saw.
the lady, Piaga, Annie Piaga, with the Piaggia, with the French fry purse.
Right. So there were those kinds of women, and then there was the other category that I really liked was like the stylish, chic gay, because there were all these like gay guys that were immaculately groomed and wearing beautiful designer clothes. They all looked gorgeous.
Philip Locke and
You know the
Eric
type.
Conrad.
You know the type. You know, but like really good looking. And then there was like the straight like supermodel or male model guys.
Male models
that were there with their hot girlfriends. Yeah, I mean
with their beards.
I don't know if they're really straight or bi, but there was a category of men.
I don't think they're allowed to be straight if they're male models. I think they will break them in.
Straight, gay. I mean, it's
no buts about it.
It's a flexible term, in my experience.
Heteroflexible, that's what we used to call them.
Well, there were probably quite a number of them at that museum exhibition. So
and Andy Warhol's team, they were that way too. They were heteroflexible, like.
Yeah, and there were a lot of people there that were associated with Andy Warhol, like people who worked at Interview Magazine. And the reason I know this is because the person I went with is an Andy Warhol scholar, so he was pointing out all the connections to Andy Warhol in the audience. And art gallery owners were there. I ran into an artist I know from Westchester County. But quite a number of people that worked in the Andy Warhol enterprises were there.
And they're all fabulous.
Yeah, they really are. And the show was great. And what was really impressive about the show is that they even had really good music. Like the DJs,
like what?
they just selected to.
Was it current?
Very current, very danceable,
Well, that makes sense.
like music that you would hear in like the latest nightclub, and it would sound good.
The latest nightclub.
Ernie.
You did not just say that.
There are latest nightclubs, and then there are passe nightclubs. And I was just at some of the latest nightclubs this weekend, and they were quite fun. They were quite late. So the music was really good, and it was open bar the entire night.
Yeah,
so like by the time we left, it looked like people were getting really drunk, and it was really fun.
Yeah, they are that whole scene is the last of the dying breed. They're the last of a group of people like that will get drunk at a party like that, and they will get all fucked up and
And the funny thing is that I was wearing my leopard print jacket and matching leopard print bow tie, which to me is not it's like dressed up but not really dressed up, compared to like the grand scale of me turning myself out. But it got so much attention and so much comments there, because people there are very sedate, even though they're artistic and sophisticated. They don't.
Well, but
they
also
don't wear
they
like super flashy clothes.
But they like to compliment. They like that's probably the conversation of everybody is like how fabulous you looked at how.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not saying you didn't look fabulous, but that's. The
and I will flash a picture to and show that in fact I did.
And if you were also kind of a newish face, they would do that to kind of like. Well,
yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, everybody looked fabulous there.
Yeah.
It was a fabulous appreciation night. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Welcome back to the Peew.
I'm doing Andy Warhol.
Did you ever meet Andy Warhol?
I did. I was with him his last public appearance.
Oh, right. When he was so sick, you killed him, actually.
Steve Lewis killed him. That's what he says anyway. He was at the Coaching Sato fashion show that Steve and I did at Tunnel in November of '87. And Andy Warhol and Miles Davis were the celebrity models that night. And Andy Warhol was too sick. We thought he wouldn't go out on the runway. He was leaning against the coat racks in the back and just kept just giving him cranberry juice all night long, which is the sign. Craving for cranberry juice is a liver thing.
Oh. I hate cranberry juice.
I love cranberry juice. So he said he felt wonderful, but he looked like Death Warrant, but he always looked that way. But his assistants carried him out of the club right after he walked. He walked to the runway, came back, and then they carried him right out. And then he went to the hospital and got the infection.
So, you were recently watching a YouTube video.
Yeah. Merv Griffin, I don't know how it came out. I was just flipping through, and I saw Edie, Sedgewick, and Andy Warhol on Merv Griffin. I was like, oh my God, I've got to see that. And it was a... Attention
viewers, this is a reaction video.
Yeah, it was interesting and a letdown at the same time. It was kind of an anticlimax. It was a little bit cringeworthy. I guess back then it must have seemed kind of, I don't know, cool, or maybe it was a performance art piece that kind of fell flat. We did a few of those on talk shows. I remember going on some talk shows, I think it was Phil Donahue, where I put white powder on my nose to make it look like cocaine. And he says something to me on the show, he goes like this or something, and I felt like I had a cocaine moment with Phil Donahue. But it was just going on the show pretending to be high or whatever, it just falls flat. And Kyoki was always in the audience and saying that we looked like brats, so we looked like, it wasn't funny, and we just looked dumb. And that's kind of how I felt about Edie and Andy. They did this thing where Andy says he could, well, he didn't even say it. Edie said that he wasn't...
He's so nervous, he can't speak. He's going to have to whisper in her ear.
Yeah, so Merv Griffin would have to whisper the question to her, she would whisper it to Andy, then Andy would whisper the answer back to her, and then back to her. And it was funny maybe for like a few minutes, but to do the show like that was kind of just annoying. Ernie says...
Well, to me, I interpret it as them just making a big fuck you to Merv Griffin. Like, we're going to go on your show, but we're not going to talk. It's a talk show, but we're not talking.
I didn't interpret it as being a fuck you. I interpret it as, we're going to do something that's different from all of your other guests. We want to stand out from all of your other guests, so we're going to do this weird thing. We're going to do it on your show. So,
But it wasn't that entertaining.
I mean,
anyway, we're going to flash like a clip of it.
If it was really a fuck you, I don't think they'd do it.
Well, here's a clip of it. Decide if it's a fuck you or not.
Good evening, Andy.
Andy, I must warn you, Andy won't say a word.
Why?
He's not used to making really public appearances, so I think he'll whisper answers to me if you ask him a question.
Can I listen while he whispers?
I'll whisper to you.
Aren't you going to say one word, Andy?
Well, so was that a fuck you or not?
I don't think Andy Warhol would have wanted to say fuck you to a famous person because he was so enamored with celebrity, the idea of celebrity. And Merv Griffin was a big celebrity back then, and he was the talk show host. I don't think Andy Warhol would have wanted to do that.
Okay, we'll never know.
He would want to ingratiate himself to the media.
That's true.
By being quirky and weird and like what he would think that people would expect him to be.
Yeah, I guess since it was the 60s, there weren't that many channels available, so people had to watch that. but it's kind of like a channel flipping moment.
But that was Middle America's idea of what bohemian New Yorkers were like.
I guess so.
And maybe they were.
Perhaps they were. We weren't around.
No, we weren't.
Too young.
Bye.
Bye.